Welcome to Wargaming Recon. This is the part of the show where John would usually hop in and do his cheesy broadcast, but John's not here tonight, so that makes this a very special episode of Wargaming Recon because this is Adrian and I'm flying solo. Not actually quite solo. Tonight we do have a guest, Dave Valentine. Dave, say hello.
Hello.
And Dave is with us. We've known him for a while. He is if you're in the New England area, he's a prolific game master at most of the local conventions. So if you're in the area and you go to the local conventions, you've probably seen him if you haven't actually met him. But he's with us tonight to talk about a couple of projects he has in the works, but one in particular, which is a game that he has coming up on Kickstarter relatively soon, I believe.
September 1.
September 1st. Okay.
Yeah.
The game is, and I'm coming into this not quite blind, but I wanted it to be kind of a surprise for me too. So the game is
It's Devil in the Wilderness.
Yep, Devil in the Wilderness. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. It's a game based on the Salem witch hunts. It's just prior to like 1692 when the actual witch hunt when the witch hysteria really hit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of writings from Cotton Mather, and I started reading a lot of his writings on the period, and it was really funny because I'm sitting there and I'm going, my gosh, this is a game. You can't make this stuff up. People would think this is fantasy. So a lot of the stuff based in the game that you got to believe is fantasy is based on his mind and what he thought he was, what he was believing that he was seeing. So we we built a game around it, and it's a card based game. And I know you're not a big fan of those, Adrian, but it is a card based game. But it's so the cards really are just to build the story and to immerse you into the game. The rest of it plays like a typical skirmish war game.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing. And then the other thing that we've got is we've built an entire website with applications that basically will do all the math for you. So rather than having to look up tables and do things like, refer to page 34 and then you factor in the table and then it says refer to page 22 and you keep doing this, you just tell it what you rolled for dice and it's going to come back and give you the results. And then you can tell it what you roll for dice there and it gives you the results. So you don't have to go looking up in manuals and things like that. The application will do that. But Devil in the Wilderness in particular can play both analog and with the computer app. So you don't have to have the application. You don't have to use the application. It just makes things a lot easier. But if you like thumbing through a book, we're going to be printing a book as well. So the Kickstarter will have cards and a book. So.
All right, cool. Yeah, I got to admit, I'm a fan of thumbing through the book. Although that said, I've had the opportunity to play Carnage and Glory a couple of times.
Yep.
Which is a great system. Now, let's. So my impression of what you have with Application Force and the way it's not really a Carnage and Glory system, right? Because like in Carnage and Glory, you got to basically set the entire game up in the computer. It does the dice rolling and the results calculations and everything.
Yeah.
And really, all the player does is push miniatures, which in a way is kind of nice.
No, and so some of the games are game master centric, where some of the games that we have, you've got a game master that's basically running the game, but he's telling players to roll dice, and then he's telling them what the results are. Devil in the Wilderness is different in the fact that each player needs to have, if you're going to use the application, each player has to have a device, and you build each player has the list built on their device, and they've got a universal die roller. So when I roll dice, you're going to see what my results are on your screen.
Okay.
So there's things like that, but it's basically each player has their own cards in front of them and has their has their roster in front of them, has what where they are in the game and things like that. So it gives them a lot of information that you'd have to have paper for if you did it analog, which I'm cool either way. I mean, I love the paper piece of it too, but we came up with this and it's really cool to have the app too. It really makes things go smooth. So
yeah, that's cool. Now you had mentioned Cotton Mather as sort of the inspiration for the game. I got to admit, I haven't read anything by Cotton Mather since I was forced to in I don't remember if it was junior high or high school.
Yeah.
At which time I didn't appreciate it. Maybe I should go back and give it another roll. But so it's a historical based game, but is it? How do I want to say? Is it
So
strictly historical, or do we have
no,
actual? Okay,
no. There's so basically we took some of his stories and some of his aspirations and some of the things that he did, and we've stretched the truth essentially. So what's happened is um, Reverend Burroughs is the sort of the enemy of Cotton Mather in the game. So you've got Cotton Mather versus George Burroughs, and Reverend Burroughs historically he was the only preacher that was tried and hung for witchcraft in 1692. There was a lot of speculation that one of the reasons that he was hung was that um, Cotton Mather he was looking for Cotton Mather's position in Boston. So Cotton Mather was going to eliminate the competition, so to speak. And he made mention of things like, well, geez, you're going from Falmouth, Maine to Salem to Boston unaccosted by the natives. Well, how have you done this? Well, you must have made a pact with the devil in the wilderness.
yeah.
So hence the devil in the wilderness.
Ah,
And so we kind of built this whole thing. Basically, you've got Reverend Burroughs. He's made a pact with Wabanaki, basically medicine men, and he's summoned ghost witches, which are actually we're basing them on actual Abenaki lore. And we've got ghost witches in the game. There's actually a half Wolverine, half man that's actually based on the lore in the game. It's really it's so there's some of it's based on history, some of it's based on legend, and then some of it's based on our own imagination. So it's a combination.
all right, so that's really good. So it wouldn't necessarily fall into the strictly historical category. You get away with it at like
Absolutely not. No.
possibly a fantasy convention or something like that, maybe even. So it's a
Yeah.
skirmish based game. Is it sort of sort of like a role play skirmish, or is it strictly like a muskets and tomahawks? Although now that
It's
I've said that,
close.
there's RP
It,
and muskets and tomahawks too. But
yeah, it's closer to muskets and tomahawks. I mean, you can kind of, the cards kind of suck you into the game and give you another feeling of almost an RPG. And I've had some of my playtesters say that there is kind of an RPG feel to it, but it's not really an RPG. I mean, it's not, you're not really
uh,
playing a character. You just kind of, you're. It's still more like a skirmish game.
right, okay. Yeah, no, I like the role play aspects. I mean, a lot of that up is can be up to the guy running the game too. But I do enjoy the role playing aspects, and skirmish
Yep.
games in particular tend to lend themselves to that kind of a thing. I've had some really good experiences with. I mean, even like a game like Bolt Action or Chain of Command, something like that, which is I assume a higher level of skirmish game. Um, you can hook together a nice campaign with leaders and whatnot. Now, is the game designed with that type of campaign play in mind, or
Absolutely. There's a
yeah?
couple of really unique things that we've done with this game. One of them is the objectives you can set. What we have canned objectives, so we have cards that you can draw that have objectives on them that kind of base around the story. But if you wanted to build your own, we have this concept in the game called turn levels, and basically there's 7 levels to the game. So you start out at level 4, which is middle of the road. Now the game ends up playing like a tug of war. At the end of every turn, you have turn objectives. If you've met your turn objectives, then so let's say the witches have met their turn objectives. It's going to pull from level 4 to level 3. So they're ahead of the game. Now, if the witch hunters get their objectives, it pulls the other direction. So you could either say, I'm going to play until somebody hits level 1 or somebody hits level 7, which are the maximums, and then it's an auto win for whoever hits that level. Or you can say, I'm going to play 8 turns, and at the end of 8 turns, where are we? Who's pulled which direction? So it might only be that you've only got, and you start out at 4. If you're at 5, well, okay, so the witch hunters have won the game because they've pulled it off of 4 towards them. So it's like a meter almost. Um, the other interesting aspect of the game is that you start out with 3 characters and you recruit during the game. So
Oh, okay.
you can recruit characters during the game, and there's cards that play into that and allow you to recruit militia and things like that. You can recruit as many characters as you want as far as in the game. You could have 30 characters on your side.
Mm,
There's one caveat to that. There's a leadership role at the beginning of every turn, and it's based on a D10. So you only have 10 actions per turn.
okay.
Your leader gets a free two. Each one of your subordinate characters of the two each get one action for free, and then you roll a d10. So you can only really activate, eight of. So if you have 30 characters each turn, you have to decide who you're going to activate. You might have characters just standing there this turn because you don't have the you don't have the die. I mean, if you roll a two on a d10, well, you're going to have a whole lot of characters that are standing there doing nothing.
Yeah.
So it's an equalizer because the first few times we played, we didn't we didn't have that lead. When we started playtesting this a year and a half ago, we didn't have that. And you get people like my son. If you've ever played against my son, he's the meta gamer, so he's going to recruit everybody on the board. So he'll have 100 miniatures on his side and be like, "All right, bring it," and he's like a swarm across the board. So we had to come up with an equalizer just for him in the beginning, and then it's
Yeah.
just really worked well as we've play tested. So
Yeah, it's nice. I like games that kind of force that sort of command and control thing on you. And a lot of systems have different ways of doing it. That sounds sort of similar in some ways to muskets and tomahawks.
yeah,
Or not muskets and tomahawks. Song of drums and
Song of
tomahawks.
Drums, and
Yeah,
yeah, Drums and Tomahawks. Yep,
and that whole series, drums and shakos, or whatever,
yeah,
where you have to roll for an activation for each unit you want to activate. And as I recall, you can control the number of dice that you roll to get more actions. But if you roll more dice to get more actions, then it's a higher chance that you'll fail. And if you fail, you're done. So you may end up in a situation where you don't do anything in a phase with anybody because you
yeah,
because you. So, but yeah, I really like that because I mean, there's it kind of depends on the game, but particularly in a skirmish game, for me, I kind of like that uncertainty
yeah.
of what the individual guys are doing. I know there's people out there that don't like that. They want to have complete control over everything, and that's cool. I mean, that's if that's what you enjoy. I'm not gonna
Yeah, oh,
say
yeah.
that that's wrong or anything, but I do kind of enjoy the uncertainty of maybe I'm not going to be able to execute my plans the way I wanted to. Um,
Absolutely.
so it sounds like you don't necessarily need a lot of miniatures to get the game on the board, but you could end up needing a boatload of miniatures to actually play. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's some limitations with the cards, and then as we come out with the cool thing about this, there's all sorts of cool things, but the other thing that we've done is there's going to be expansion packs, and there's
okay,
also going to be a concept that we're kind of stealing from some of the collectible card games where we're going to have booster packs that have specialty cards in them that you can add to your deck. And they'll be the only way you can get them is through the booster pack. So there's going to be other cards that we're coming out with that are going to do some really neat things. So there's going to be some. I want there to be replayability in the game,
okay,
I think adding cards and adding other factions. We're immediately during the Kickstarter, we're working on it now. We're working on a French faction and a solely Wabanaki faction. So you don't just have the witches and the witch hunters. You'll have two other factions almost immediately out of the gate. Will be coming into play in the game. So you can actually have cards for them as well that'll be specific to their factions.
their
So it's
faction. All right, that sounds. Now, one question I have to ask, because this tends to become a concern of mine with games that do the addition of factions and has special cards or whatever, or special miniatures or whatever,
yeah.
is that with the intent to release expansions down the road, how how are you going to balance everything? Because what tends to happen is with games like this, and I'll use Flames of War as an example. It's the one
Hmm.
I'm most familiar with. Is um, the army lists and whatnot. And granted, we're not talking army lists here, but the army lists and whatnot in Flames of War that released with the game pretty quickly became not competitive as the newer lists came out. Now, granted, Flames of War is kind of geared toward competitive play, where I assume Devil in the Wilderness is not. But even so, it's
Yeah.
the kind of a problem you can have releasing things like that. Is just how do you keep everything balanced?
Yeah. One of the things that we're doing is basically the witches and the witch hunters are going to be pretty much the most powerful factions in the game. What we're considering for future releases down the road is actually having um, individual character factions, so to speak. So it'll be like we'll have a Cotton Mather faction, and it'll just be a singular character. So he becomes almost like a superhero. And we've talked about doing things like that, but we kind of like staying with the grouped factions. So the witches and the witch hunters are always going to have the best toys, so to speak. The other factions are just there to kind of help and balance them out and give you more playability so that especially if you want to do a multiplayer game, um, there is the ability in the game. We're going to be selling. You'll be able to buy the starter set, but we're also going to have the ability so you can buy additional witch hunter and witch decks. So
Mhm.
you don't need to buy multiple starter sets. If you want to have four witches playing in the game,
Yeah.
you just have them the starter set, and then you just buy two additional decks so that each witch hunter and each witch has their own deck that they're working off of,
Okay.
because there's specific cards to those factions. So, but the witches and witch hunters are always going to be the most powerful, and they're always going to be. So we'll be adding cards to them, and then the new factions are just going to be sort of add-ins that will enhance the game, but aren't going to really. They're not going to overpower the starter set, so to speak.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So it sounds like the game is basically designed as a two-player game.
For the most part, it's a two-player game. Yeah, if you go with a 4x6 board, it's basically 3x3 or 4x4, depending on who you talk to. And I've got play testers that like the 3x3. They like the tight quarters.
Yeah.
I felt it was a little bit too tight on a 3x3. I play on a 4x4. So for a two-player game, that's perfect. You could do a four-player game on that size. If you start breaking out into like six players, we've done it with six players. You want to be on a 4x6 board because you just start crashing into each other. Once you start recruiting, if everybody's got 15 or 20 miniatures, and it just gets to be there's too much going on.
That's a problem with a lot of games. I mean, it's no line them up and knock them down, basically 40K style. There's no maneuvering or anything like that, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's no fun. But
So.
it is nice you can fit it on a small table though. If you're doing the two-player game, that's really handy because that's the true
Oh. Yep.
dining room table game.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a good thing. So Kickstarter is launching on September 1st. What actually I won't talk about the Kickstarter specifically yet, but what about miniatures for it? Because it sounds like the kind of a thing where you could potentially use, say, any historical miniatures. There are plenty of
Absolutely.
historical makers that would be able to meet those needs for some of your stuff.
Yep.
Um, but
The
are
the
you going to release miniatures with the game, or is that how's that going to go?
the original design was so that it can be played with pretty much any miniatures. I mean, there's some really cool witch hunter miniatures out there. There's some, the witches are kind of specific, but let's face it, you can proxy any miniature you want for the witches. They're
Yeah,
Native American witches, so they really should be more like like a native shaman or something like that,
right.
for the look, but you can proxy whatever you want. We are, however, in the Kickstarter, we're going to be we are having miniatures produced, but we're only
Okay,
producing the core six characters for the base set, and that's only if we hit the stretch goals.
okay.
But we are having like Cotton Mather, Reverend Burrows, Increased Mather. Um,
Yeah, those are kind of the characters I was thinking of. You're definitely not going to want to proxy those guys. You want the real
no,
deal.
especially Cotton Mather, because if you've seen any paintings of Cotton Mather, he's got a very specific hairdo.
Yeah, he does.
So we definitely we're building that, and the miniature for him is going to definitely be, that hairdo is going to be prominent in his in that miniature. So we do have the six really cool miniatures, and we've got some ideas for future some of the other ones. But I mean, like the Wolverine man, he's really more of a werewolf, so you could use a werewolf miniature. I mean, but he's supposed to be like a Wolverine slash man kind of a thing,
Right,
from the legend. Um,
right.
but yeah,
Yeah,
we
and I
can
mean,
certainly.
Yeah, and shape shifting is I'm not as up on my Native American or Indian whatever history as I probably ought to be, but I mean shape shifting and that kind of thing was kind of prevalent, I thought.
It was, yeah,
So
and
yeah,
there's a lot of Wabanaki or Abenaki legends that are that talk to that end. So we're kind of playing into those characters, and we've got a few things happening in the game that the cards kind of give that lore and give you that
yeah.
feel, and then things happen. Um, yeah, so there's random events that happen in the game, and things will pop up on you, and
Okay,
so
awesome. John is actually in the chat. He's keeping an eye on me so that I don't screw things up too badly, I guess. But he asks a relevant question, which is: are the boosters going to be collectible in the sense that you don't know what you're getting when you buy the booster?
yeah. So the we're gonna have you're gonna have the core set. You're gonna have the expansion boxes, and then there'll be booster packs with specialty cards that aren't in any of those other sets. We've been bouncing back, and because we're the boosters are going to come out well after the Kickstarter. It's probably going to be next spring before we start doing boosters.
Okay,
But the booster packs, we might include some of the if we've got cards that are really popular that people want seconds of, because you can actually deck build in this game and you can build your deck out. So if you want you know a second card of a certain type of card in your deck to be able to play that card again, you can build that out. So we're thinking about putting those in the boosters, just card packs. So there'll be a
okay,
little bit of room for, and there'll be some neat stuff. So um,
okay. Yeah, I know that that's kind of a polarizing issue buying a pack and you don't know what you get. Some people love it because it's like Christmas, and other people are like, I spent my $12. I want to make sure I'm getting my $12.
yeah, and these booster packs aren't going to be anywhere near that. They're going to be in the $5 range for the booster
Okay,
packs. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean they're not going to be. We're not getting outrageous. We've got a really good manufacturer that's able to keep our prices pretty reasonable. So um,
okay,
yeah.
all right, cool. So yeah, let's talk about the Kickstarter a little bit. I don't know how much you want to go into because you know you're not actually live yet, but what are you looking at for? I'm sure most people are familiar with how Kickstarter works, but
Yep.
what are you looking at for like your backer levels, prices, stretch goals? You know how much money you need to reach. Just an overall kind of overview of the Kickstarter, as much detail as you feel like
Yeah.
like I said, I know you're not live with it yet, so you may give all that stuff away. Some people don't, but
No, that's okay. I'm okay with that. Basically, the levels are going to start out. We've got everybody does the dollar pledge level to you're going to get a shout out on the site kind of a thing, and mainly
yep,
because I have friends on a personal level that are like, oh, I want to help you out, I want to back you, but they're not interested in the game. They're never going to play the game, so it would be a waste of their time and money to go and buy the game because it's not something they do. But
right,
they'll throw a few bucks in, so you do that. The next level is going to be every level except for we're going to actually do a retail level because I love our local game stores, so we're actually going to have a retailers level. So there'll be a 10 pack of the books and the rule of the book and the cards. It'll be a 10 pack, so they'll be able to have a retail starter pack kind of a thing. But
okay,
every other level is going to have a 2-month membership to the site. They'll all come with the PDFs, and some levels will have just the cards with the PDF. Other levels will be the cards and the books with the PDF. They'll all have the membership. And then we've also got a level. I don't know if I didn't mention it before, but things from the basement is actually going to do buildings for us.
yeah, I wanted
So
to
we're
talk
gonna.
about that, but go ahead. We'll finish the Kickstarter stuff first. But
Yep. So one of the levels is going to be basically it's called the village, and it's everything. It's going to be all
oh
the
wow,
buildings. It's if we hit the stretch goals, it'll be all the miniatures. What we're doing is to for a successful Kickstarter, we're looking at $1,500. So it's not a big. We're not looking at a big money number.
right,
We have some ideas in mind, and that's going to do what we need it to do. Then we've got stretch goals at it's 2,500, 3,500, and 4,500. And the 2,500 level, all the levels, all the levels that have a printed book and and the except for the retail level, the printed book and the printed cards will get all the miniatures at whatever stretch goals we hit. So if we hit the first stretch goal, those 3 levels that get the cards and the books and things like that are going to get the miniatures. So they'll get the first 2 miniatures. If we hit the second stretch goal, they're going to have the second 2 miniatures for free. It's going to be included in their Kickstarter. And if we hit the third goal, they're going to get the last 2 miniatures as well.
Okay, very
So
cool.
those are the levels that we're working with.
Okay, so not so bad then. The miniature, and this is me knowing nothing about how to do a game. So the miniatures, who, how did you get them made? Who sculpted them?
Okay,
Did you do
so
it, Dave? Did you design?
no, 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 no. So we actually contacted Steve Barber in England, and Steve
Oh,
Barber, he
okay,
has a commissioning service, and you can actually get miniatures commissioned by him, and basically, it's just you pay him to make the master,
yeah,
and then you can basically, if you want, you can take the master and you can go and get miniatures made yourself and go and get molds made, but to price that out was thousands and thousands of dollars. So if we give him the casting rights, then he's going to cast them for us, and we're just basically paying we're paying a wholesale price,
right.
and he's
Oh,
going to have the casting rights for the miniatures, but we're paying for the masters.
oh,
So we
okay,
kind of worked a deal, a sort of a joint deal with him that way.
yeah. So he would be able to sell the miniatures outside the game then,
Yeah,
if he,
so
yeah,
what he's going to do is he's actually going to put a Devil in the Wilderness page up on his site.
nice,
So
very
he's going to
nice.
have, with those miniatures listed there, and then he'll make, because I don't want to get into the miniature business. That means I have to start inventorying stuff.
Yeah,
And the manufacturing company that we have for the cards, they're actually, I can put a storefront on their site too. So I really don't have to touch any of this stuff. I mean, I'm only going to have to inventory what I want to bring to shows and conventions and things. So that's going
right.
to be nice.
That will
Uh,
be very nice.
have everybody else deal with distribution, Jorg, and I'd rather have Jorg and Steve Barber and have them make money too. Let's see if we can all make money off of it. Make a little money off this, and
Yeah,
you know,
that's the best way anyway. I mean, people who can do it for you, and it's like if you have a guy like Jorg who's able to produce the exact kind of buildings you want, you can either have him do it, or you can learn how. Well, actually, you probably already know how to do the laser cutting and everything, but
yeah. But
yeah,
I don't. But again, we've talked about this multiple times, and as a group, and up here, and it's like you can't do it all. So you got to decide what you're going to do. If you try to do it
yeah,
all, you're gonna burn yourself out.
yeah, you totally
So
are.
if you let other people do what they do best, and you do what you do best, and you know um for us, it's producing games, and we're hoping that this is our first Kickstarter, so we'll see how this goes, but we're hoping that this is going to be the thing. So yeah, the
Yeah.
William Smith house, that's a great house.
Oh yeah, yeah. So so yeah, let's talk about the things from the basement connection a little bit. Now he's already got a range of historical buildings, some of which I have that are really
Yeah.
awesome, and he's got a lot of, or he's doing now a lot of buildings. You know, actually on the battlefield, he's done some of the Lexington and Concord stuff. He's got the whole Gettysburg Farms range now.
Yep.
Um, he's got the Sleepy Hollow range, which isn't strictly historical, but would probably work for your setting.
Well, the Sleepy Hollow, there's interesting things that are coming about next year. There's going to be a whole new game that we're working on, and we're going to be incorporating Sleepy Hollow. So
I,
these
I,
buildings will see a rebirth,
excellent.
and I'll leave it at that.
I volunteer to be the headless horseman. That sounds like me.
There you go. There you go. But no, but for this game, for our current game, um, we are he's producing the Salem Meeting House, which is basically it's the house that is it's the meeting house that's been, in fact, there it is on the screen.
Yep.
That's at the Rebecca Nurse homestead in
Yeah.
Danvers. That's the
Yeah.
reproduction of the house, and that's basically what he copied for me was that house. I have a model of it that I have on my game board that I use, but it's a foam core model that I built, and I wanted to be able to, it's a very very prolific house in the story. So you really kind of want, I wanted that building for sure. The other
Yeah.
two
Absolutely.
houses that he's producing for me are just generic colonial houses of the period. And what he's
Okay.
done that's really cool on these is he's got an expansion pack that he's done, and the expansion is off the back of it, so you can see you can actually make four different houses conceivably.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I see.
you buy four of the main buildings and two of the expansion sets, and you've got four houses done.
Yeah.
And with just those. So we're going to be in there. These houses actually have a second floor on them that pops in and out.
Nice. Very
So
nice.
yeah. So we're pretty excited about that. They're
Yeah. Definitely.
great models. So
So, any other industry tie-ins with Kickstarter you want to reveal to us, or?
that's pretty much those are the two big people that we're working with. Those are, other than um, the company that we have printing our stuff, but they're not really a it's it, they don't do any of their own stuff. It's a printing company. So
Right. Right. So that's really awesome. Um, all right, so Kickstarter is live on. I've forgotten already. September
September
1st.
1st. September
September
1st,
1st.
we're going live. Yep. So it's like 6 days,
Yeah.
7 days.
So,
Yep.
all
Yep.
right.
So that's going to be exciting.
All right. Very good. So, um, let's talk a little bit, unless there's more that you wanted to say about the Kickstarter. I wanted to get into some of the other application of force um, products and sort of
Absolutely.
who application of force is. Is it just you? I'm assuming not.
No,
Or
no. So application of force came about. There's a gentleman up here in New Hampshire, Arafan Gregory, and he's been writing rules since the 90s or probably earlier even. But he's actually published some rules in the 90s. And then he got into computer assisted gaming. And there's things that he wanted to be able to do that he couldn't really do with um, with your generic sites out there. So we bought a physical server and we co-located this at a data center south of Boston. And so this is our own equipment. I log into it remotely and it's like being on a desktop. And I've got full server access to this machine and I can do whatever I want to it because it's mine.
right,
Um, so I'm able to. I've got complete control of this. So it allows us to do things. We've got a database on the back end, so now we can do things like multiplayer games and things like that, where you can actually, have multiple players interacting. And especially since this whole COVID-19 thing has happened, we've got people that are able to play remotely and like a card-based game, for instance,
yeah,
Jade Tower Studio, which publishes 1676, which is one of my other favorite games. I know
yep.
you've played that with
I've
us
played
at
that. That was
Havoc
fun.
last year.
Yeah, that was fun.
So we have that digitized on here so that you can play the cards with that game. We've got
Perfect.
their cards, and it's so you can actually play their game on here as well. And you got one deck. So if I wanted to play that remotely, how would I do it remotely? Because you need to have the same deck. Well, with our application, you and I could be playing right now. I can have the board with a camera set up.
Yep.
I can move the miniatures for you, but you've got your own your own cards in your own hand basically, and you're able to roll dice remotely as well. So you can
Right.
and I can see what your die rolls are. So it's all really pretty interactive that way.
All
So
right. That's now we were talking before. I'm just going to bring this up, being a software developer guy myself. We were talking before about concentrating on what you do well. Now, setting up and having control of your own server farm is great in one way, but is that something that long term and as you grow, and I'm assuming you guys are going to grow, that do you want to be in the server farm business or the game business, I guess is my
no, no, we
question.
do not. And we've already I think we're already talking about moving this to like Amazon Web Services.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with this, and being that you're a tech guy, you're going to get this. this entire application, while it's built on Tomcat,
Yep.
it 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 needs right now, although I also work with the company that built the framework that runs our entire site. So the framework is built so that it really is designed to be run on a Mac. So this is sitting on a Mac server right now.
Okay.
You can't virtualize a Mac server. You talk
No.
to Amazon and they're like, the problem Apple isn't in the Apple's not in the software business, they're in the hardware business. So they said,
Right.
we'd have to have an entire building with just Mac servers, and we're not going to do that. So we are porting this over to Linux. So at some point in time, and probably within the next 6 months, I'll be able to move this to a Linux platform. So I'll probably go with something like Amazon Web Services or something along those lines and move to that direction. So yeah, no, I didn't want to be a server farm. I wanted the control, and I needed the control up front to be able to design this site the way that we wanted to design it.
Right.
This is not a template. This is not. This is completely from the ground up. We've designed this from scratch. This is, and actually, what's really funny is the login is actually HIPAA compliant because of the way I designed it. Because I designed it for another application that I've used for in my professional life. So it's a pretty secure system. So it's
That's
there's some
good to
cool
know
th-
that.
there's some really great features, but yeah, no, I don't want to be in the server farm game because we've already had denial of service attacks and things like that, and it's
Yeah, that was going to be my thing. 'Cause that's yeah, you
yeah,
definitely don't want to. I was just curious for my own purposes mostly,
yeah,
but
absolutely. No, no, it's yeah, no, I don't want to be maintaining a server farm. So I mean, for the short term, it's worked.
yep.
And I mean, it's really been good for development because I do have complete control. But now I can relinquish some of that and let Amazon deal with the denial of service attacks and all that other fun stuff rather than me.
Yeah, definitely.
you know?
So I'm not Jeff Bezos's biggest fan in the world, but I think we can trust him to handle stuff like that at this point. Definitely
Yeah,
better than we can do it on our
yeah,
own.
and I mean, they're so mainstream that
Oh
that I
yeah,
think that it's. I mean, there's other sites out there we could look at, but I mean, it all just depends. It depends on where this goes, where we go with it.
yeah, yeah. The big thing with
And-
that cloud hosting, of course, is going to be costs. But and I mean, I've looked at that for little things that I've done myself. It's like different hosting services. The costs are all about the same,
Yeah.
and none of them are cheap. None of them are
No,
cheap.
even what we're doing, I mean, just paying for the because we've got our own server, we're just paying for the service, and the service isn't cheap either. So I mean,
Yeah,
that's the other reason we're doing the Kickstarter is we're trying to, we've been hemorrhaging money for almost 2 years now, so it's kind of like, okay, I'd like to get a little bit of it back,
yeah,
you know.
definitely. Yeah,
So
no, I totally hear you. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. A lot of people get. I shouldn't say a lot of people, but people often wonder. It's like, well, why do I have to? Why does this cost money for me to use this? It's just a cloud app. You go out and host something on Azure or AWS or Heroku or any of them, and yeah,
yeah,
get back to me with that question.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not a simple JavaScript thing that I'm running on, GoDaddy or something. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. Yeah, it's just a website. Well,
yeah,
no, it's
GoDaddy
not.
couldn't handle
But
this site. It's
yeah, of
just
course not. Yeah,
it's too much. There's too much there. So
yeah. Oh man. Well, that's really cool. Now, is I'm going to ask these questions anyway, but well, I kind of know the answers to them, but just to so that you can talk about it. So the games that you have, um, so application is it generic? Like I want to play Black Powder with Reinhardt, for example, in the manner that you just described. Like one of us will set up a table, we've got the camera on it, and then we're back and forth through the application. Um, will application force handle that in a way that
yeah. So currently, all the games that we have on this page that we're looking at are all they're all Game Master based games,
yep,
except for I've also got we've also partnered up with Gaslands, which I don't know if you've played that game at all.
I
That's the one.
have. That's a lot of fun. That is so much
So
fun.
we've got that virtualized as well on here. So it's on the bottom of the page or close to the bottom of this page. There's Gaslands. So you can get to the Gaslands game and basically he's got a really smart setup. The guy really is he's good. He came up with this concept of the Friends of Gaslands. So Osprey has the publishing rights to Gaslands, but he has the IP rights. So, and he didn't want to get into the miniatures game and all this other stuff and all these accessories and all this other stuff. So what he did was he said, "All right, you join my Patreon for $4 a month. You pay me $4 a month, and you can use the Friends of Gaslands logo, and you can create whatever you want for the game as long as you're not copying and pasting stuff out of the rule book."
Wow.
It's
That-
genius. He's
it
got
is.
like he's
Yeah.
got like 2,000 followers, because all the 3D printed stuff. So you got to figure at 2,000 followers at $4 a month, you do the math.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more than my take home.
And that's just for giving people the ability to be able to use the Gaslands name.
Yeah. Man.
So we
That
did it,
doesn't
and
even take into account the marketing aspects of it.
no,
That's a
exactly. I mean, here
Gasland logo showing up everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah, and you have to use the Friends of Gaslands logo, but who cares? Everybody gets
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a cool
Exactly.
logo too. It's so, but that game is multiplayer. All of the other games so far, except Devil in the Wilderness, will be the first truly multiplayer game other than, well, that's not true. Gaslands and 1676 are the two multiplayer apps that we have on the site now. Those are you can have multiple people on the same application. All the other ones are game master centric. So basically, but it still works sort of the same. I mean, Arafan has been running 2 to 3 remote games a week with the other games, like in Freedom's Cause and Victoria and things like that.
Yeah.
And basically, he just he has you roll dice, you do your thing, or you roll dice on the app, and he punches in what you rolled. So it's basically the same concept, but you've only got one console. So basically, and then he'll say to you, "All right, you lost 3 miniatures in that unit, or this happened, or that happened." More like a Carnage and Glory kind of thing, but a little bit. I don't want to. I not that I want to trash in the rule set, but it's just smoother. It's quicker. It seems to play a lot faster than some of the other set systems. But
Yeah, well, what it sounds like is it's like everything is up front in this system because you're looking into the game's tables and whatnot, even though you don't necessarily have them in front of you. Whereas in Carnage and Glory, a lot of the stuff that goes on with the casualties and it's hidden. You don't know why a particular thing happened or what you could
yeah,
have done to prevent it. A lot of times, there's nothing you could have done to prevent it, but you don't know that.
yeah.
Which is that whole fog of war thing. I mean, there's something to be said for that too. But
There's a little bit of that in this, but it's not nearly what it is for Carnage and Glory because we've played Carnage and Glory and we see the frustration level that people have. So we've tried to minimize that frustration, and that's part of what we've done here is to minimize that and just make it a little bit, but we do want to go into the multiplayer realm, and the only way we could do that was to have this server and this setup. And that's when, Arafan started telling me about these ideas he had, and I said, we can do that. And he was like, really? And so all of
yeah,
a sudden, we started talking over the course of a couple of months. And the last year, just before Huzzah, we launched the site, um, just as a front, basically. It just had a homepage and it just had a couple of games on it, and just to kind of get the feel for it. And we've just been testing it for the last year. And we were going to wait until this summer to do the Kickstarter, but then when COVID hit, we said, we do have these great games, and they've been play tested for 9 months. So what we did back in March was we did sort of a grand opening of the site, and we gave everybody free memberships. Everybody down the line, right up until just about this last month, we were giving away memberships as fast as we've got close to 100 members,
wow,
but they're free.
right,
So we'll see what that turns to. And I mean, some of them have joined. Some of them have joined, which has been good. They've actually, paid for memberships since.
yep,
Some of them have paid right in the beginning because they said because like we were talking about earlier, they get it. This isn't free for us to run. So we
right,
did it out of the goodness of our hearts, saying, let's give everybody the ability to play multiplayer and hope that at the end of this whole thing, they decide, hey, this is pretty cool. And I do want to join this, and I do want to do more with it. One of the things that our fans found is he's now playing every Wednesday night with the crew that he used to play with in Arizona like 10 years ago. And he hasn't played with those guys in a decade. He's like, now every Wednesday night, I'm gaming with dudes I haven't played with in a decade because we're doing it over Skype and using application of Force.
Yeah, and this
So
is
it
this is this is what I was thinking of too, because it's a poorly kept secret that in the very near future here, I'm going to be moving from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania,
yeah,
and obviously I'm hoping to make new gaming friends when I move down to Pennsylvania. I've got some connections with the guys. I don't know if you're familiar with Little Wars TV, but
yep,
they have they've got a gaming club and everything, which isn't exactly close to where I'm at. But anyway, I'm hoping to get involved there. But what I've really been thinking about is it's like because I've got a lot of people back here, and it's like, how am I going to stay in touch with these people? How are we going to game and whatnot? And the more I looked into the various remote gaming options, of which there are many now, well, not many, but more than there were 5 months ago, say.
yeah,
Um, yeah, Application of Force was kind of a standout. I mean, John and I have kind of looked at Tabletop Simulator. I actually went out and bought it. We haven't used it yet because it's, yeah, again, I don't want to bash it because it's good for what it was designed for, really.
yeah. I mean,
And a lot of people are using it for miniature type games, but
oh, I think it's really cool. My
yeah,
problem on a personal level is I got to do a lot of coding to do what I want to do, and I
yeah,
don't want to do any more coding.
yeah.
So, I'm coding my own site. That's enough. I don't want to code for somebody else's site. It's
Yeah, I don't even want. It's like when I get home at night, it's like the last thing that I'm certainly not interested in sitting down writing some scripts to get a. Yeah, no.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, and that's the other thing is with this. So what we've done, especially with like with Devil in the Wilderness and 1676 is what kind of really I could really get to see how the card aspect of it was going to work, and that was really that really worked out well. So um, we've got kind of a master template now, so I can create card and dice based games until the cows come home, and don't really have to do a whole lot of coding because I've done all the heavy lifting is all done, and it's all
yeah,
I basically got a template now that I can build off of. So I don't have to do a lot more coding, and I started looking at Tabletop Simulator because a few people were talking about it and stuff. I'm like, oh, I'll check it out. And I'm just like, oh man, I got to do a lot more coding here, and I'm just not sure this is what I want to do. It's cool, and I've
yeah,
played some games with people, and I know I mean, they've got somebody wrote a l'art de guerre. I don't know if you've
yeah.
played l'art de guerre, but there's a l'art de guerre expansion for Tabletop Simulator. I'm like, how cool is that?
Very cool. That dude did a lot of work, whoever he was.
Yeah, he did a nice job. So I play that because it's already done.
Right, right.
But if there's something I wanted to do like 1676 or something like that, I mean, you got to customize it and do your own thing, and it's just not what I want to do. The other thing that people do is they use Roll 20.
Yeah,
Roll 20 works, but it's not really designed to do what we want to do as a miniature gaming community. It's designed for the D&D guys, and it works great for them. My both my kids use it. They love it.
yeah. My daughter's used it. I never have myself. I've thought about running a traveler campaign over it, but I just know how that would go. So
So
I'm more
yeah,
of an idea man. I'm not really an execution guy. But
yeah.
but yeah, Roll 20 is great for what it is. But you're right, and I know people have pressed it into service for tabletop gaming, but it's not ideal for that. Not what I've seen of it.
Yeah, I mean, people are using it. I think some people use it because they already had it. You know what I mean? They're D&D players
Yeah,
as well. And if I've got it, well, I might as well use it. I'm
might as
paying
well
for
give
it
it a
anyway.
shot.
Yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah. So
Um, so to put more games on Application of Force, like you've got the games you have up there now, and Gaslands being a special case, is there is there like licensing issues? Like, say you wanted to put Black Powder up there, would you have to get permission from Warlord to do
yeah,
this, or
and we've
yeah?
tried. We were actually we came up with an AI that we were gonna use for bolt action. So you could
Mm,
solo play a bolt action and basically have an AI. So you could do it solo, use the application, and basically play by yourself.
yeah,
We contacted Warlord. Tony Rieger from Iron Hammer Studios, he got us in contact with the North American coordinator, uh, and but I think they're just trying to keep their head above water with this whole thing, with COVID and everything else going on, and they're just not looking at new environments right now. But yeah, we don't want to. You don't want to start trying to use other people's intellectual property because they even if they don't want to fight you for it, they have to just to prove because otherwise they're opening themselves up for everybody to steal their stuff.
that's the thing. If they let one guy get away with it, even if they love or enjoy, um, what you've done, they can't just let it go because yeah, you're
No,
exactly right. Because then thousands of people are going to line up behind you and start
yeah.
essentially stealing from them. So yeah, I
No,
kind of get it.
we're hitting some. We've hit some of the smaller game publishers. I mean, the guy from 1676, he's a one man band, and he's really a cool guy. And I contacted him, and he didn't quite get it at first, and I invited him to a game basically, and said, "Check this out. This is your game," because
Yeah,
I said I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I said I've already created it. It's on the site, but I'm the only one that has access to it because I have that level of security I can set up. So I can set up access to it. And then if you're one of my players, I can give you access to the game session that we're on,
yeah,
but you don't have access to create your own game or anything like that. So I was doing that and I was running games remotely, March and April and things like that. And then when he saw it, checked it out, I gave him a membership. I said, "Hey, go in, check it out. You've got access to it now." He thought it was great. So I mean, because it gives people the ability to play his game remotely, or if I go somewhere and somebody's got, you know 17th century miniatures and they want to play a different game, all I need is a phone.
right,
I mean, all I
right,
need is a smartphone, and we can play 1676 with the smartphone.
yeah,
It's designed, most of the applications we've designed to work all the way down to a smartphone. You've got to run them typically landscape on a smartphone, because
yeah,
it's too narrow. Otherwise, it just gets too small. But they're ideal on a tablet. I mean, that's the scale we've designed them for. But we've scaled them up and scaled them down so they run on desktops or they'll run on phones as well, as long as you don't get ridiculous with a tiny little phone. But
right, right,
I mean, I've got an iPhone 10 and it works great.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. So, one last question I wanted to ask.
Yep.
Okay, John wants to know what are the game. We've kind of just talked about this. What are the game systems we coming to application of force in addition to Devil in the Wilderness? And we just kind of talk. If you have anything in the pipeline or anything that you were really hot to add aside from like bolt action, anything you've thought about?
No, I mean, we do have plans, and I kind of let out the Sleepy Hollow thing. There is going to be, if you've read anything on Sleepy Hollow, the interesting thing is that in the story, Ichabod Crane is obsessed with Cotton Mather.
Yeah,
So there's a
yeah.
great
There's a
tie-in.
nice, yeah,
A
yeah,
great tie-in from Devil in the Wilderness to Sleepy Hollow. So I see that there's going to be a future there, and I've talked to Jorg about it, and I think that you're hearing it here first because
Woohoo.
we've only just sort of been chatting about it the last week. So this is I let the cat out of the bag, so to speak.
I guess that's okay.
It's
No,
all
that's
good.
exciting though. That kind of stuff is fun. So yeah, the one last question I wanted to ask is with Kickstarter, there's risk, and we talked about some of the potential downsides of hosting your stuff on Amazon, Azure, wherever you're going to go with it. Um, Now, Devil in the Wilderness isn't really that big of a deal because there's paper options available. You get the book, you get the charts. You don't need the app or the computer to play it, so
Yeah.
that's fine. But do you have concerns around that? Like geez, if we don't generate enough revenue off of sales or whatever or membership, are we going to have to shut the whole thing down at some point? And this is kind of not a great question to ask because
No, no,
obviously
no,
every
no,
business
absolutely. I
thinks
mean,
about that.
this is
But
stuff we've talked about, and basically what we've decided is that I mean, our friend and I are splitting all the costs on everything, and we've said, I don't want to run for the next decade.
yeah,
But we also both understand, having had businesses in the past, and we both have consulting gigs that we do as well now on top of our full-time jobs. I actually have 3 businesses.
oh
Um,
geez,
so so we've basically said we're going to let this run for about, we figure, 3 years. If we're not making any money in 3 years, then we're not doing something right, and it's time to shut it down.
yeah,
But at
that's
that point, we're going to make sure that anybody that has a membership is going to get their money's worth out of the membership, and we're not going to shut down, or if we shut down early, we'll give people their money back for their memberships.
yeah, and that
We're
that's that's
we're
kind
we're
of where
not
I
out
was.
to, we're not out to take anybody, that's for sure.
Yeah, I
So
wouldn't have assumed that, not from you guys,
no,
but
I mean,
no, I
so
was
yeah.
just curious that
No, no, I mean, so we're looking at, we'll be around for at least a couple more years.
Yeah.
And hopefully longer. I mean, basically this is our sandbox. We want to just we this is our toy box. We want to be able to, part of it is we're creating these games because we want to play them.
Right.
Um, and it's really convenient to have it out on the web. I mean, if we had to, I can bring that server to my house and then just bring the server to conventions and run games that way. I mean, I could do that, but it's not this. At the end of the day, if we really wanted to do that, we could do that. I mean, we could basically, our fan could get a server, I can get a server, and we can just mirror them, and we can run stuff at our houses and we can run stuff at conventions. At the end of the day, we just figured sharing it with the world would be just another bonus. So.
Yeah, I think it definitely is for everybody concerned. Um, so if people want to keep up with you, with Application of Force, with Devil in the Wilderness, where can they do that at? I assume you're all over the web.
Yeah, so we're obviously we have a website. You got it up on the screen there, applicationofforce.com. You can also go to devilinthewilderness.com, and that'll bring you right to the Devil in the Wilderness page on Application of Force. It's just that we grabbed that domain name too because we figured that it was gonna. So if you just type in devilinthewilderness.com, it'll actually you won't. Yeah, there you go. It'll bring you right to this page.
Okay,
So
great.
devilonthewilderness.com will bring you right to this page. This page will have more content on it as the Kickstarter goes live. We've got more
Right.
content ready to go up. We're just kind of trying to keep things on the down low until the Kickstarter goes. So,
Right.
um,
Understood.
and then obviously on Facebook, Application of Force on Facebook is where you'll find. We're posting pretty regularly now, every couple of days anyway. We're posting updates and things that are going on.
Okay.
So that's where you'll find our. We also have if anybody's interested in playtesting, we do have an Application of Force playtest group that you can get involved in, and you can just message the Application of Force page on Facebook, and if you want to get involved in the playtest, but we do have a Facebook group for playtesting as well. So.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Twitter, Instagram, any of those?
No, we actually didn't. We stayed pretty much with Facebook, just because we didn't want to maintain multiple places at this point.
Yeah, it gets to be a hassle.
It's a part-time job.
Yeah.
Just Facebook is a part-time job. So, we
Yeah.
and maybe that's a mistake. I don't know. We're kind of learning as we go here. I mean, I've never launched a game before, so we're gonna see how this goes.
I have suspicions that it will go quite well. I really do. I mean,
I hope so.
you're doing it at the right time. A lot of people are looking at all the alternatives they have available to them for for remote gaming, and Application of Force seems to be one of the better ones. I mean, it's more focused than a lot of solutions out there kind of are, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so Kickstarter is live on September 1st. Is there any last minute words you want to get out there? This is your time to bash John. He can't really do anything about it. If you have anything bad to say
I would.
about him that our listeners should know.
No, just watch out for us on September 1st, and let's hopefully this will be a successful one, and we can get it off the ground. Basically, we're going to get. I'll give you a little inside secret. We're going to get the game off the ground either way. The cards are going to go either way. It'll be the miniatures. The Kickstarter is really about the miniatures. The
Okay.
miniatures. The first two miniatures we've already paid for, so they're
Okay.
already they're already there. But we want to recoup that money if we can. If we can't, then the other miniatures won't be made if we don't get to those stretch levels on the Kickstarter. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Man, I'm thinking about all the other stuff that could be done with this, just with this game. I'm thinking like European tie-ins, which is worth a thing in Europe. Yeah, this is.
Scotland is huge. Yeah, I mean, Arafan wants to do a Scottish one. We talked about a German one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do with this whole. We started with this concept because this is a game that I've wanted to do for probably 4 or 5 years now, and
Wow.
so it's something that I've been thinking about for a while. So.
All right.
Yep. Cool.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to seeing how it goes and hearing more about Application of Force and Devil in the Wilderness in the future. So I guess that's it. I was going to say a bunch of bad things about John, but I guess I won't do that. It is his show. It wouldn't be the right thing, and he's actually here behind the scenes keeping an eye on us anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah, he could
chances.
shut you down too.
Yeah, yeah, he would.
He'll
He,
mute you.
he would turn the whole thing off, I'm sure. All right, well, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching the video. If you're actually watching the video, you can get your Wargaming Recon merchandise at wargamingrecon.bigcartel.com. You can keep up to date with the podcast on the Wargaming Recon Facebook page. Our Twitter site. John is on Twitter. I personally have nothing to do with Twitter anymore, but I am in the Wargaming Recon podcast page and podcast fan club, so you can keep up to date with us there. Yeah. Our Australian correspondent and also our audio editor, God bless him, Josh Schubridge, is doing a segment on Warhammer Fantasy Old World coming up soon. So you're going to want to be sure to tune in for that. Joshua is a excuse me. Joshua's a great guy and really knowledgeable about all things Warhammer. So if you have any interest in that, and that's actually the only Warhammer that's ever interested me, was the old school Warhammer Fantasy. Definitely look into that. And with that, I think we are done. So this is the point where Jonathan usually does a cheesy outro. I'm not going to do that, but do make sure that you check out Devil in the Wilderness, the Kickstarter coming up on September 1st. Check out the Application Force website and their other available games. Bookmark them, subscribe, and so you can keep up to date with any new games they release. And just remember to keep on gaming. John will be disappointed if I didn't say that. So there you go.